Hello, hello, and welcome to the Marketing Menagerie. Yes, we're going through a name change. So if you are new here or you've been here for a little bit, you may be wondering what's going on. And we will get into that shortly. You are feeling like you're doing all the marketing things in your business, but you're still wondering where all the new clients and sales are. You're in the right place. You might be feeling like you're doing all the right things, but in reality, your foundation may be built on shaky ground. So in today's episode, in this video, we're going to talk about the 3 stages of business, why things at each stage will subsequently sabotage or enhance your future success. Welcome to the Marketing Menagerie. I'm Elisa Connor, and I help you connect the dots between your marketing that you're already investing in so that you see more sales. A lot of times people will just throw money at tactics, and then you go to ask them if those are working, and they just look at you like a deer in the headlights and go, "What?" So if that's you, stick with me because we are going to talk about the stages of business and how sometimes you can be at one stage and have surpassed another stage, but still not have all your ducks in a row. And that's okay because we're here to get those ducks in a row today. So let's talk about the 3 stages of business. When I've been working with clients for a really long time, and what I did is I created the 3 stages that I see people in most of the time. And your business could be in between these stages or it could be in one of these stages. But either way, you will have gone through or going through one of these 3 stages. And the stages are start, optimize, and scale. And so let's talk about what happens in each of those stages and where things can go awry. So in the start stage, that is typically where you're going to find a newer business. So somebody who I typically work with people who were formerly in corporate and then have gone out on their own as a business consultant or as a coach. And so they come to me and they're like, I have all of these skills that I've accumulated in corporate, and now I want to turn it into a business. But I don't have a website, I don't have an email, I don't have all of the things that I need. And I say, wait, back this train up. We need to start somewhere else. And so when you're in the start stage, typically everybody wants to rush into technology because it feels safe. But if you aren't setting up the really important pieces of your business, like your message, your audience, and your offer, you're going to have a really hard time getting traction. And so when we're working in this stage, in the start stage, those are the things we need to focus on. So a lot of times people can get clients and they can move up into the optimized stage and they can be doing fairly well. But what I'll find is that when these things aren't clear, they're having a hard time breaking through to reach the audience they want to work with. And so they might have 1 or 2 clients, or they might have a couple of people that referred them clients or whatever, but they're really not standing out amongst the people that they want to stand out. And they're typically doing everything under the sun to market their business. So, for example, they may have a podcast, they may have a YouTube show, they may have somebody they've hired to do social media. They are speaking on stages. They're doing all of the things. But then when I ask them, I'm like, okay, so that's so exciting. You're doing all those things. How many sales have you gotten from those in the last 90 days? And it's usually like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, okay, you're spending all of this money on marketing, yet you have no idea if it's driving sales. Houston, we have a problem. So that's where people are at the optimized stage. They're spending lots of time, lots of money. They don't have any processes in place. They may have a small and mighty team, but most of the time the team is either doing one of 2 things. They're running around like they're covered in honey and being chased by a bear because they don't know what they're supposed to be doing, or they're not doing anything effectively because they're just wondering what they're supposed to be doing. And so if you can relate to that as a business owner, stay with me because we have some solutions towards the end of the video. And then the scale stage of business is really where people are successful and they have quite a consistent level of revenue and of clients coming through the door, but they are so immersed in their business that they can't take a vacation. They don't feel like anyone else can do the things they're doing. They don't have any processes in place. Or if they do have processes, no one can find them. Nobody knows what they're supposed to be doing. They might have referral or affiliate partners, but those people never know how to really refer or get them clients other than like, I'm just going to send this to you. And so none of those programs are really built out and they're not able to utilize them in an effective way where they can say, hey, Sally, take this over. I'm going on a vacation for 2 weeks and I trust you to keep the business going. And so it's constant paranoia because they're like, not only do they have to deliver for clients, but then they have like all of these, they have to be getting sales, they have to be putting content out, they have to be in charge of everybody that they've hired that's supposed to be supporting them. And it's super stressful. And you do not go into business for yourself, typically, to spend more time in your business than you did at your 9 to 5 job. So those are the three stages. If you don't know which stage you're in, or you're like, oh, I could be in this one, I could be in that one. Hey, I've made it really easy for you. I have created a business uh, stage assessment and I have linked it in the comments below. And I also pinned it as the first comment. So you can feel free to go take that and it's going to tell you right where you are. And it'll give you some specific actions you can take to ensure that you are being effective in the stage you're in and help you get to the next stage. So if we look at some of the symptoms that happen in these different stages that can kind of throw things off balance, we are looking at like, what is the root cause of, what's going on in this business? And a lot of times, like if we're looking at the start stage, you're going to have the symptoms of they're going to have very few calls, very little traction. They're having a really hard time selling. They might have a great network out of corporate, but they have no idea how to have conversations with those people. They have no idea how to talk about their business. They may have a little bit of low confidence going on because even though they're really good at what they do, they're really, really bad at marketing themselves. And that's okay because everybody has to start somewhere. And what makes it hard to market yourself as a new business is you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know how you're going to help them. And you don't specifically have a plan that says, hey, this is where you're going to start. This is what you're going to get when we work together. And this is where you're going to be. And instead, you just list out like a bunch of check marks, like we're going to meet 5 times a week. And we're going to, and please don't meet 5 times a week, by the way. But you get my idea. You get the point I'm making, which is, they have this laundry list of things they're going to deliver, but it never really tells the people that would be a potential client what it's going to mean to them. And so this is probably the biggest hurdle that I see most beginning and startup businesses struggle with. One, they try to serve everyone. I can't even tell you how many people I've worked with that are like, yeah, I help all people that work in, so for example, right now, the big, I don't know if there was like a memo that went out to everybody, but the big phrase that I hear all the time now is, I work with middle market companies. And I was like, great. Because probably 5 years ago, it was small businesses. Everybody worked with small businesses. I'm like, do you have any idea how many small businesses there are in the world? It's like millions, probably billions. But anyway, if you're a small business and they're just like, hey, small business, you're like, yeah, whatever. I'm a dentist. Like, I don't care if you're talking to small businesses. So it's the same kind of thing. And so I try to get people to really narrow down when I'm working with them in this phase to who is it you're talking to? Like if you were going to go meet somebody at a coffee shop and tell them about who you work with and what you do, what would that conversation look like? And if you don't know the answer to that, then you need to spend some time thinking about it. And so for example, I have a client that I just recently created a website for her, and I have a startup package basically that we implemented all of that for her business. And her role was in corporate communications in the finance and tech space. And so when I said, hey, you should focus on that with your messaging, there's always resistance. And it's usually with the people in the startup phase because they don't want to limit who they're talking to because there's fear around there not being enough. And so when we're looking at what keeps people stuck in the start phase or how they can't get momentum in the start phase, it's because they don't know who they're talking to or they're unclear about who it is Their offer is not clear to the person who is going to buy it, and there's no outcome for the people they're trying to help. And so when you're looking at, if we're looking at, for example, the client that I just helped, that we were trying to get really clear on her messaging and how she helps those mid-size corporate clients with communications. One of the things that we talked about was the giant need for corporations to develop a communication plan for intergenerational workforce. So when you're looking at Gen Z and millennials and we're always forgotten, but Gen X and boomers, the language and the way that they communicate and the way that they interact in a workplace is vastly different. Yet most companies have not taken the time to document or create processes around their communication. So that versus we do corporate communication for mid-sized companies, which one do you think fits a tighter audience where she's going to get traction quickly and get results more quickly? Obviously, the second one. So each of these different levels of business has different symptoms. So if we're talking about optimize, usually the symptoms of somebody that is in the optimize phase is they are doing everything. They're usually, I like to say they are my shiny object syndrome people. And most businesses stay in this phase for a very long time because they are always chasing shiny objects. They always want to do the next thing. I'm going to do a book launch. I'm going to get on stages. I'm going to host an event. I'm going to have a virtual summit. And it's like they never stay in one activity long enough to get traction. And every activity that you do builds momentum. And so if you just do it for 60 days and you're like, oh, switching gears, you have to start over again. You have to start completely over at zero to build the momentum. And so a lot of times they're busy throwing money and time at tactics, and they never connect the dots to what they're doing. So let's use an example of a business owner that has a podcast. More often than not, like this is another thing, like I seriously think organizations put out these memos of like, hey, everybody start a podcast. And so everybody jumps on the bandwagon, but then they like create these podcast episodes that don't talk to their ideal client or that don't address anything that their clients are thinking about. And then the worst part of it is they spend so much time and money. It takes a lot of time to produce videos, podcasts, and it takes a lot of money because you have editors, you've got people that have to create the content. Even with AI, there's a lot that goes into any kind of episode, even like this one. And people don't realize that. And then when you go, okay, so you have 300 podcast episodes, you must be really generating a lot of revenue. And they're like, oh no, we haven't gotten one client from our podcast. And I'm like, what in God's name? What? Why are you spending all of this time and money on a podcast? Okay, so if that's you, I don't say that to be rude to what you're doing because yeah, you're taking action. That's great. However, we got to take a step back and go, okay, how are we going to cause this activity to generate ROI? And that's just an example. I mean, people throw money at ads, like all of these different things. And I'm not saying any of those things are bad, but I'm saying without a plan that tracks it to them, to getting your people into some kind of funnel that is, building a relationship and then getting them to buy, you need to stop investing in the tactics until you have a direct line to how they're going to buy. And so that's where I see a lot of optimized people. And then we already talked about the people that are in the scale mode. So I'm not going to go over that again, but usually they're running around with their hair on fire and they don't have the support or team that they need, or the team that they have is not able to support them in the way that they should. And so they haven't had a vacation in 10 years. So nobody wants that. And there's a lot of things that we can do to fix that as well. The big ones are we need to equip their affiliate and referral partners with the right things to get them to talk about the business to other people. There needs to be a process in place for that so that their team can execute. And most importantly, there needs to be a plan for everything they're doing to get to the goals that they've set that everyone on the team understands. So a lot of times they'll have these big, high level goals, which I'm not saying those are wrong, but to get to those goals, you need to have a process. And that's where the breakdown comes is like, yeah, we want to do another 6 figures in revenue. But meanwhile, we're barely doing 100K in revenue and we want to get to 600K by the end of the year, but there's no plan to do that. And if there is a plan, it only lives in the CEO or founder's head. And so everybody that's on the team is just going, okay, well, I hope we get let in on the plan at some point. So anyway, so those are the stages of business. Like I said, if you have not identified which stage you're in, or you're like, oh, I could be between this one or this one, go take the business stage quiz. That's why I created it. And then I have some resources that I have created to go with that assessments once you get your results. And I'm going to have upcoming videos. That's how I'm going to move forward with the videos on this channel is we're going to address challenges for each stage. And typically, it won't be like this one where we're talking about all 3 stages. It'll be a video that addresses a specific stage and a challenge in a specific stage. So if you've enjoyed this content, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos and to share it with a friend. Take care.